This is Frankly MSP, where managed service providers get real.
Hey, and welcome to episode 001. Yes, it's the very first episode of Frankly MSP, the podcast for managed service providers who want to boost their productivity, efficiency, and profitability. I'm your host, Jennifer Tribe, and I'll be coming to you every 2 weeks with 20 to 30 minutes of interviews, industry insights and analysis, and tips to grow and improve your service provider business. The goal here is to keep the episodes relatively short, but to pack each episode with maximum value and takeaway for MSPs. So let's go.
You're listening to Frankly MSP.
I'm super excited to introduce this first segment we're calling What's Going On? It's going to be a recurring feature on Frankly MSP, and we've got two amazing hosts lined up for you, both likely names that you're familiar with. The first is Carl Palachuk, a US-based MSP consultant who's very well known for his work in the industry and for the great content he produces, including the book Managed Services in a Month, which is a perennial bestseller in our industry. Your second host for What's Going On is Richard Tubb, a UK-based MSP consultant, also very well known for his consulting and prolific content, all of which finds a home at tubblog.com. Both Carl and Richard have been MSP themselves, so they know what it's like to sit on your side of the desk. And in every episode, Carl and Richard are going to pull a couple of headlines from recent news and talk about what that news means in an MSP context. How will it affect your business? Should you be paying attention to it? Or is it a lot of hype with no substance? Carl and Richard are going to tell us. Take it away.
Hi everyone, Richard Tubb here, and we're here for the first of a new series of podcasts. I'm joined today by Carl Palachuk, and where do I find you today in the world, Carl?
Well, oddly enough, I'm at home, which is a rare occasion for me this year.
And it is a rare occasion. Where is home normally for you?
I live in Sacramento, California, so we are about 8 time zones away, I think, from each other.
We are indeed, yeah. And you've been on the road quite a lot recently, haven't you?
Yes, I'm putting on a big cloud roadshow this year and meeting lots of partners all over the world. And it was great to see you, among other people, when I was in the UK.
Indeed, it was great to see you. I guess I'm being far too familiar here. For people who are not familiar with you, Carl Palachuk, who are you?
Well, I am a speaker, an author, a trainer. I have built and sold 2 managed service businesses. And currently, I spend my time running around the world, meeting partners and putting on trainings.
And my name is Richard Tubb. I'm based here in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of the UK. I'm a former MSP owner, and I work with the owners of IT businesses and basically to help them grow their business. So, Carl, you and I have known each other for a number of years now, haven't we?
I've lost track, but it might even be 10.
It's that long.
It's quite a while. I think you were 14 when I met you.
Yes.
And today you're 25, right?
It is my birthday today. Unfortunately, I'm not 25 years old. I'm 41 years old today. But yeah. What's been happening in your world this week? Is there any news stories that have jumped out and caught your attention, Carl?
Well, I was quite intrigued. So I'm much older than you. So I remember the early days when computer networks started talking to each other. And a gentleman named Bill Burr worked for the NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the U.S., and he was asked to put together standards for passwords. And basically, this week or a few days ago, last week, he came out and said he was wrong, that all of these standards that he'd come up with to have complexity in uppercase and lowercase and letters and characters and all that, he says, throw all that out. It turns out he was wrong, and that after literally decades of giving this advice, that really the only thing we have to do with passwords is they should be something that is easy for humans to understand, and they should be very long, and the longer the better. And, Microsoft did this thing probably, 5 years ago, telling people, use a passphrase, and then they would, at their little road shows, they would type like a 64 character passphrase. And so it turns out that's actually the best advice, that adding one more character, one more digit, and maybe using a phrase from Shakespeare or something that you can remember is a much better way to have passwords than to have this complexity that they've been encouraging for so long. So it's interesting because at the same time, as IT consultants, we all know there are clients that literally, they want their password to be cat. And when you say you have to change it, they change it to dog. And when you tell them they have to change it again, they change it back to cat, And so those are clearly the wrong passwords. And so it's bizarre that we have, on one hand, it's so easy to be secure by just adding another word or phrase. And on the other hand, people just refuse to do it. They just hate it. And today you cannot have crappy passwords anymore. It's no longer an option.
Well, certainly from my perspective, I use a password manager. I suspect you probably do something the same. Would that be the case?
I do indeed. So I've had one that I bought a 5-user license for many years ago. At one point, I had 3 5-user licenses so that everybody in my company could use this tool. But I have a total of 886 stored passwords.
Wow. Okay. We're going to be comparing passwords now. I'm going to have to pull the statistics out on that. But I use LastPass, which I believe is owned by LogMeIn now. So probably familiar to a lot of IT solution providers and managed service providers. And before that, I used an open source tool called KeePass. So I'm intrigued. The story that you're talking about there, are they talking that we shouldn't use a single password to give us access to lots of other very, very strong passwords? Are they saying that is the case, or are they saying that every password, should be should be something that we can remember?
So this guy, Bill Burr, he's now the head of cybersecurity at Komodo. So he didn't talk about reusing passwords, but that's one of the big things with LastPass is they'll search and say you've reused this password, 107 times. But he did talk simply about, it doesn't have to be this massively complex, randomly generated stuff that you can't remember. That just adding an extra length to it. And, you can get these, you can go online and find a password checker that will tell you how long it will take you to break a password. And just adding 4 or 5 characters multiplies it by hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years.
So as I said, I use LastPass. And of course, just because we're geeks and we're comparing these things, I've got 866 unique passwords stored in my LastPass there. But I mean, at the end of the day, what that boils down to is I use LastPass. I've got a single a very strong passphrase. In fact, I hope it's very strong because I've just told the world I'm using LastPass. So exactly. I'm going to make myself a great vector for attack here. So I use a passphrase to log on to that. I use 2-factor authentication. So in theory, even if somebody guessed my passphrase, they would still have to have my smartphone or whichever other device that I use to generate that 2-factor authentication. And then I've got 866 incredibly strong passwords within that vault. And LastPass themselves tell me if anybody's been hacked or any of those passwords have been duplicated. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. How are you feeling about your passwords nowadays?
Generally pretty good. So I have a fingerprint scanner on my phone. So my password vault can't be opened without my finger. Now, that doesn't mean that my finger will always be attached to my body, but at least theoretically, I'm secure in that regard.
Yeah, so but from the MSP's perspective, from IT solution providers' point of view, I've just come back from a week on the road, different road shows and presenting to MSP audiences. We actually had a few questions around security, and I think it's fairly commonplace out there, judging on the conversations I've had, for end users not to use password managers. Do you see that your side of the pond?
I think that people are just starting to do it. Passportal's another brand that they are allowing you to resell password management into your clients. So that's an opportunity for them. So I think that people are taking it far more seriously than they used to. And again, I think that things like this Equifax thing where 140 million accounts were breached, things like that just make it easier and easier to sell into clients.
The great thing, if I can call it a great thing, the great thing about IT security is you don't need to do PR for this. This stuff sells itself. There's barely a day you can turn on, I guess, for CNN or whoever, your side of the pond. For here, it's BBC News or Guardian Tech. And this stuff sells itself. There's a breach almost every day now. So security is becoming more to the fore for most people, isn't it?
Well, yes. And they're getting bigger and bigger. I mean, now this last breach was literally half the adult population of the United States has now got their security breached. And there's all kinds of opportunities for these guys to break into this store and this government agency and the other government agency, and it never stops.
Yeah, I think it really struck home here in the UK when the NHS, where hospitals were being taken offline and patients were actually having to be removed from hospitals because of the ransomware that hit a few weeks ago. That made mainstream news, and I think people started to realize, this isn't something that happens to someone else. This is real life, and this is something that can happen to anybody.
It's also an opportunity for training for IT consultants because your clients don't know what to do and what not to do. In the case that you just mentioned, a lot of the damage came from people shutting down their computers so that the breach wouldn't affect them. And so they still had to, at some point, turn them on and make sure that they weren't infected.
Indeed. So let's move from security to another form of perhaps taking over. You'll see what I mean when I get to it. How do you feel about bots and AI, Carl?
I'm not so worried because I grew up with these movies about how the robots were going to take over the world, and I've always known it was not true.
Well, the reason I bring it up is that a new story has resurfaced again this week in UK tech media. This is something that does the rounds, and it has done the rounds quite a lot. And it's about creepy Facebook AI. This new AI that Facebook had developed their own language, basically to help them move things along with their algorithms on Facebook. And of course, the British tech media or the British mainstream media grabbed this and basically said, look, this is the end of the world. Androids are going to take over. That documentary that we saw, Terminator, it's going to come true. And the story was even covered by the New Scientist and others at the time. It got me thinking, of course, at this stage, it's neither here nor there whether AI is going to take over. But I am interested in how AI can help IT businesses. And had an interesting conversation with a couple of MSPs last week who are dabbling in using Facebook bots for marketing. Is it something you've come across at all, Carl?
I haven't seen it with very many, but I've seen a few MSPs who are doing it. And, part of it is that you have to still be very active because your clients are human beings and they need you to be an interesting person online as an MSP. So the one I have in mind, a gentleman who I've done some coaching for, he and his wife run the big recycling system for technology in their county, and they're always talking about it on Facebook. So when they do marketing through automated systems on Facebook, people already have some idea of who they are.
Got it. I was not convinced about Facebook bots. I thought it was a gimmick. I could not see really the point of it. And then when I was speaking to these MSPs last week, they sort of opened my eyes to it, and that they're using it in the same form that we might use email marketing. In fact, there's a marketing company here in the northeast of England, Andrew and Pete, who have used it very, very effectively to have conversations and to share info with you. Because at the end of the day, I think most end users spend a lot of their time, perhaps too much of their time, on Facebook. So Facebook bots is a really good way of engaging with them, where perhaps other media methods, email or direct mail, may fall down. So I'm intrigued to see whether Facebook bots take off, whether it's a fad, where we're going to go with this.
Well, the other thing is, it might be interesting to sit down at your client's computer and look at their Facebook and see if there are ads for IT consultants or something, which would suggest that they've been doing searches on Google and now they're getting remarketed on Facebook.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the original story, if you want to check it out, was the creepy Facebook AI story that captivated the media. That was on BBC News. And another reason I brought that up, and just to finish our conversation for today, Carl, I spoke to another MSP, and I'm not going to mention who they are because this remains to be seen whether it's a good idea or not. Another piece of AI, and that's the Amazon Alexa bot. So have you got Amazon Alexa or Google Home or anything like that at home there, Carl?
Yes. Now, mine, you have to push a button for it to listen to you. So I'm totally okay with that.
So my Alexa is next door to me, and I say, Alexa, not too loud, because otherwise Alexa will respond if I speak too loud. But basically, this MSP that I spoke to said that he'd put a Amazon, let's call it an Amazon Echo Dot. Let's just eliminate that. He'd put one on his client site. And I didn't get into the intricacies of how he did this. He'd actually changed it, hacked it, if you will, a little bit, so that the wake-up word was his MSP's name. So basically, people within the client's business, when they wanted to raise a ticket, could say, such and such MSP, raise a ticket. And it would raise a ticket for them and send it straight to support, which on one hand, I thought was incredibly innovative. And on the other hand, incredibly creepy. What do you think about that?
It's kind of cool. I mean, if I were the client, I'd be a little nervous to talk about my MSP, like don't call the MSP because I don't want to spend the money. And then you get a search for, I don't want to spend the money.
Exactly. That's it. So remains to be seen whether that's good, but creepy AI or AI good for business. It's here. It's probably here to stay. I don't think it's a flash in the pan. So we will see how that pans out. So as we draw our conversation to a close, Carl, what have you got coming up over the next couple of weeks or so?
Well, I'm home for about 9 more days, and then I'm off to Australia. I'm doing a series of events over there, including speaking at the SMB IT Pro conference.
Fantastic. Well, I am at home for the week after a number of days on the road. And then I'm off to XeroCon in London, Xero with an X, that is the accountancy package. So that's going to be interesting. My first time to what should be an accountancy conference, but what is actually going to be attended by quite a few managed service providers that I know. So I should report back on that.
Very good. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time today, Carl. I look forward to chatting to you soon.
You're listening to Frankly MSP, brought to you by Avik Networks.
If you want to dig deeper on any of the articles Carl and Richard just discussed, I'll put links to each one in today's show notes at avik.com/franklymsp/001. Now we come to the interview portion of the show, and our guest today is Kevin Royalty. Kevin is the founder and managing partner of Total Care Computer Consulting. Total Care is an MSP in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and they're pretty small, just 5 staff, yet they're able to support a sizable client base because they partner with other companies and consultants for services they don't offer themselves. And that's our topic for today, partnering to extend your service mix. Kevin walks us through the success he's found with partnering, how he finds good companies to partner with, how he structures those partnerships. Let's listen. Hi, Kevin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Our topic today is partnering with other firms to build out your MSP's capabilities. So let's jump right into it. Your MSP, Total Care Computer Consulting, currently partners with about 9 other companies. Tell us about the services those partners bring to the mix for you.
Some of them offer specialized services such as Linux expertise, way better than what we would be able to find and try to hire ourselves. Other ones do things like wiring. We can do basic wiring, but when it comes to running and handling fiber and doing all kinds of things that we don't have the tools or the talent for, we definitely partner with other companies that do things like that. And in some of the cases of the 9 partners that we have more than one that do the same thing. It just depends on their capabilities and their reach. And some of them work in one area near one of our offices. Other ones work in other areas near other offices.
How do you position those partnered services with a client? Are you making a referral? Is it white labeling it under your own project management? How does that work?
Most of the time, it's white labeled under our project management. It depends on who we're working with in terms of the partner. For example, one of the wiring guys likes to bill direct, which is totally fine with us. And we tell the customer up front and they invoice the customer direct. The other person likes to do it under our banner. They will change shirts to show our shirt when they come in to do the work. And as far as the customer is concerned, it's another employee. Makes us look bigger than we are. Not that we're trying to deceive anyone, because if there's an issue, we're probably going to call the same person to come out and do the work. And who knows, one day we may acquire that company. It just depends on how things go.
When you're white labeling, are you taking a markup?
Most of the time we do take a markup. It may not be very big. We may negotiate with the partner in advance to get a better rate than if they were doing it direct. And in return, we can then do some limited markup.
What about the ones where you're just referring out, like the one you mentioned who bills direct? What's their relationship there?
The relationship is actually very good. Since we don't really overlap, they only do wiring, we don't. So there's really no overlap as terms of we're worried about them stealing a customer, whatever. And the customer that we're talking about, the mutual customer, understands the relationship. And they know that if there's an issue, they're going to let us know first before they contact the wiring person if they think there's an issue with quality of work. We're going to be involved because we're the project manager and we're the IT staff. So we need to be part of that conversation should something happen. And we've had a great relationship with this company that we work with. So it's been wonderful. We've never had any issues at all. And we're continuing to work with them.
So even the ones where you're making a referral to another company and the client is being billed direct, you're still a layer of project management and quality control.
Absolutely. And we're the ones that are giving that subcontractor, if you will, we're giving them direction, telling them exactly what needs to be done. Most of the time we're there during the project that they're doing the wiring, or we're there for overseeing it. If it's a multi-day project, we might be out there for a few minutes every day, if not most of the day, working with them and making sure that everything is meeting our specifications and our mutual customer is happy.
And are you getting a finder's fee for that or a portion of revenue?
It's almost on a project by project basis. If it's a very quick job, like, hey, we need somebody to come out and pull a piece of fiber, other than the project management part where we're billing to be there for the project management part, we're not taking any cut or asking for anything from the subcontractor. But if it's a long-term project where they're there for multiple days doing something, we're giving them a huge block of hours, basically, of one of our clients. And they usually drop the rate. Again, case-by-case basis. It's not a hard and fast rule.
How do you find good companies to partner with?
A lot of it, honestly, is through the IT pro community. I've been involved with the IT pro community in the Cincinnati-Dayton area now for, I would say at least 30 years. So I've been involved with running groups. I've been involved with starting groups. I've gone and spoken at many groups around the country. And the IT pro community is where I go first when I'm looking for a potential partner. In some cases, I'm out looking for someone in specific. Other times, a potential partner will come looking for me, saying, hey, I do XYZ. Would you be interested in potentially partnering if any of your customers need that expertise? And sometimes we say yes. We come out with an initial set of like a guideline of how we would have a relationship with them, billing, things like that. Would they wear our shirt? Would they be pretending to be an employee? That kind of thing. And then we kind of wait and see if we have any work for them. In some cases, we might have work right away. In other cases, it may be months before we have some work for them. But that's how we've typically found everyone, is through that IT pro community. And I mean live face-to-face meetings, not LinkedIn or online or anything like that.
So you've said that a lot of these services come in under your project management. Well, they all do, whether or not they're billing direct or not.
Correct.
So they're essentially representing your company in one way or another.
Yes.
So how do you know you can trust them to do good work? How do you vet them ahead of an engagement?
Well, that's one of the things that we definitely do is we ask them for customers that they've done work with that we can call and reference. And in some cases, we'll even pop out and take a look at the quality of their work. A lot of the guys today, I'm not going to use the wiring guys in specifics, they will take a lot of photos and we can take a look at those photos. We will also contact the person they did the work for and say, what was it like before they came out and did the work? What is it like now? Do you have any before pictures if the vendor didn't have any for us to look at? And we've done that. If it's a vendor that we're going to look like we're going to rely on long term, we're going to do everything in our power to vet them before we give them any work.
Have you ever had a partner botch things with a client?
Honestly, we have not. We've lost a couple of partners over time, in some cases because they retired. But we've never really had a partner go in and botch a job. I think part of that is the fact that we spend so much time vetting them and then being the project manager, not smothering them in the project, but just making sure that if we need something done, that it's done the way that it needs to be done, but leaving them to do their area of expertise without jumping all over them.
You're listening to Frankly MSP.
How do you set up your agreements with your partners? Is it a formal written document, handshake agreement?
It starts out as a handshake, and then we go through the formal process. We'll draw up some paperwork. My business partner typically handles that part. I'm more on the technical side, but we do have a formal document in place. Sometimes they will supply something. We've got stuff that we've come up with along with our lawyer working with us and our accountant to produce something that is going to be able to protect everyone, but give us what we need.
Going back to the day that you partnered for the very first time, was that a conscious decision to go looking for a partner?
Yes, it was actually. We want to be experts at what we do. And to do that, you have to live in that world. And when I'm saying the world, I'm talking about, say, the Microsoft infrastructure area. So for us to be very good at that, we have to focus on it, which means anything outside that, we need to find people that have that expertise, whether we hire them and they're an employee and we can sustain that a relationship, or whether we have them as a contractor that we pull in on a project by project basis. We have to be masters of something. What we don't want to be is a generalist where we can know a little bit about everything, but never be very good at anything. That is not what we're about.
What are the biggest benefits that you've seen from partnering in this way?
One, we don't have to worry about overhead in terms of having an employee that may not be able to carry their own water in terms of billable hours. We see that as a plus. The other thing is having the contractor as a trusted partner. We know with the agreements we have in place that we can give them a call, reach out to them, discuss potential client, and everything's going to be confidential. They're not going to try to go around us. It's a small IT community, even in the Cincinnati-Dayton marketplace. So in a lot of cases, they may have been there in the past or may never have been there, but know of the client. It's kind of interesting, the relationships that we have that have lasted for so long. We've been in business for 10 years now as Total Care Computer Consulting. And some of these relationships we have with our subcontractors go beyond the 10 years because we've worked with them at previous firms.
And are you doing most of the selling and referring out to your partners, or do you also get referrals coming the other way?
It comes both ways, but mostly we're the ones doing it. We're either meeting new potential clients or projects that we've envisioned and infrastructure improvements or client expansion or relocation require us to reach out and bring in that expertise when it's needed. So we have a lot of projects that in the next 2 years we know are coming that we're aware of with our existing customer base. But sometimes we'll get a call from one of our partners that says, hey, I'm working at client XYZ. Looks like their IT firm that they're using, they're not happy with. They're looking at potentially replacing them. I'm going to drop your name, just going to give you a heads up. So then we come in with a little bit of foreknowledge, which is nice to have, into a potential new client. And in some cases, we end up with the client and they already have that relationship with one of our subs, which is great because it makes us both look good.
For an MSP that's considering partnerships but hasn't taken the leap yet, what's your number one piece of advice?
I would say get plugged into the IT pro community and start building those relationships. If you're going to try to be an expert in one thing, you need to find other people that are experts in their areas that you know you're going to need help with at some time. Whether you turn that relationship into a potential future business partner or not, you need to prepare for those inevitabilities because it will happen.
That's great, Kevin. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Glad to do it. Thank you for having me.
That was Kevin Royalty, Managing Partner at Total Care Computer Consulting. For more information about Kevin or our topic today, visit today's show notes at avik.com/franklymsp/001. Well, that's a wrap on Frankly MSP episode 001. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to Frankly MSP in iTunes, and watch out for episodes 2 and 3 coming in the next 2 days. These are special interview-only episodes that we're putting out as part of our launch week. In episode 2, I talked to Larry Walsh at the 2112 group about whether Amazon is a threat to MSPs or a huge opportunity. And in episode 3, my guest is James Vickery. James is an Aussie MSP and consultant who reveals the secrets to successfully offshoring your MSP team. Remember to subscribe to Frankly MSP in iTunes so you don't miss out on these and other great future episodes. Till next time, this is Jennifer Tribe. Thanks for listening.
Frankly MSP, Brought to you by Auvik Networks, the most efficient and profitable way to manage your clients' networks.